Our story begins in the lower levels of Coruscant as Anakin Skywalker is looking down at Clone Trooper 5's as the blaster wound in his chest is still smoking. Rex was holding the dead body, clearly in anguish over what has just happened. Fox and the Coruscant guard looked on, knowing that they did their duty, but deep down they wondered if it was the right call. Either way, it was over. Fives was gone. The Chancellor was no longer in danger. But as the group departed the area, Anakin kept replaying the final words from Fives over and over in his own head. He was going on and on about organic chips built into their genetic code. Chips to make the clones do whatever someone wants, even killing the Jedi, just like Tup did. Fives had mentioned that Palpatine was involved in some way. None of it made much sense to Anakin, but he had to admit the words were haunting him. He could tell Rex was also having some doubts about how much of this could actually be true. But for around a month from here, Anakin and the others would sort of forget about it, or at least they would distract themselves with the war effort. Anakin, Rex, and the 501st were constantly put into battle after battle, but soon, Anakin and Obi-Wan would uncover a revelation on the planet Obadiah as the Sifo-Dyas mystery was unraveled. While investigating Sifo-Dyas' death, the Jedi would discover that the man called Tyrannus, who the Kaminoans said helped create the clone army, was actually Dooku. This meant that Dooku, their sworn enemy in this war, was secretly the architect behind the Republic's army. Why he would do this was a mystery. Most of the council could only assume that Dooku just wanted chaos in the galaxy. But one night, while Anakin was unable to sleep on Seleucami during a mission, he sat by a fire with Captain Rex, who also could not sleep. Anakin just talked about how he thinks he has failed Ahsoka, and Rex said that the men miss her deeply, but Anakin didn't fail her. And as they talked, Anakin soon revealed to Rex that Dooku played a part in the creation of the clones. The two of them would discuss this for a long while, and something would hit Rex. He asked Anakin if maybe Fives was right. Maybe the chips were put in them by Dooku, and he created the army in order to destroy the Jedi with their own army. This theory was too good to ignore. Over the next couple of months, Anakin's main mission would be top secret, as he worked with the Jedi Council to ensure that every single clone trooper would be having their chip removed. At first, the Council was hesitant, but with Rex removing his and remaining exactly the same, and also testifying to the Council that the clones would be willing to do this, the mission indeed got underway. The hardest part would be keeping it a secret. Anakin, of course, wanted to inform Palpatine of this mass chip removal, but in talks with the Council, they all agreed that no politicians can be informed, because it is very likely that Dooku has spies all throughout the Republic. Every single Republic cruiser had the machinery already installed that could remove the chips, and with the Jedi using the Force, along with the medical droids here, the process would take months. It would happen in between battles, but as the Outer Rim sieges were well underway, and the Republic seemed to be pushing the Separatists out of the galaxy, the clone troopers would have their chips secretly removed. And what was strange about all of this was that the Jedi Council sort of forgot it was going on because of how little the change the clone troopers showed without the chips. They were quite literally exactly the same, proving to everyone involved that these chips were not truly meant for behavioral modification, but instead for something far more sinister. Time would continue to go on, the war would continue, and finally, the attack on Coruscant would occur, calling Anakin and Obi-Wan back to their home planet of Coruscant, while Ahsoka and Rex were sent off to Mandalore. Despite the chips being removed, things in Palpatine's plans were going quite well so far. He was unaware that his clone army would not be siding with him, and Anakin would kill Dooku on the Invisible Hand. But later, in Council, the group would do something unexpected to Palpatine. They would vote to make Anakin a Jedi Master because of his work in the clone conspiracy case. Now, Palpatine didn't know why they made him a master, and Anakin could not exactly tell him, as this was still a secret of the Republic. The Council thought that without Anakin, the mission to remove the chips from the clones may not have occurred. The Jedi would not have this advantage over the Separatists that they're now holding on to. And even with Dooku's death, the Council was now even more suspicious that someone within the Republic itself, perhaps the Chancellor, could secretly be Darth Sidious. And with Anakin being a master, he was less angry with the Jedi Council. So, when Anakin received his mission to spy on Palpatine, he was not too angry about it. The Council trusted him. They were letting Anakin in on their evidence that Palpatine could be working closely with Sidious. Palpatine continued trying to bring Anakin over to his side, eventually using the tragedy of Plagueis and telling Anakin that the Council is going to try and take over the galaxy. Finally, the time would come. Palpatine would reveal his true identity to be Darth Sidious. He would tell Anakin to join him and save Padme's life from certain death. Anakin would initially refuse. He would go back to the Jedi Temple. Mace Windu this time would trust Anakin to come with them, and together, Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Aegon Kolar, Sazitin, and Anakin Skywalker would go to Palpatine's office, preparing to do what must be done. Upon arrival, Anakin would hesitate at first. He would be thinking of Padme, but as soon as Sidious went into his true persona of Sidious, Anakin snapped out of it. He joined the Jedi, blocking a killing strike to Sazitin and Aegon Kolar. Neither of these Jedi have truly fought a Sith before. Anakin has faced Dooku many times. He knew Sidious would not hesitate, and with the Jedi now ready, the 5 of them pushed Sidious back to the window. Sidious knew he didn't have a chance, so he just smiled and flipped out of the window. The glass shattered behind him, and the 5 Jedi looked down to see him floating away. Immediately, Mace Windu alerted the entire clone army on Coruscant of what was going on, and to target Palpatine, but Sidious had his own ideas. He slipped down into a hidden layer deep in the Coruscant tunnels, and he activated his own communicator, speaking to the entire Grand Army, giving them a simple order: execute Order 66. And this is where it all started to really go wrong. For the first time, Sidious realized that he was the one being played. The clones no longer had inhibitor chips. Even the Coruscant Guard, the men most loyal to Palpatine, had listened to their brothers and gotten the chips removed. And right now, all of the evidence was pointing against Palpatine being on the side of the Republic. In a panic, Darth Sidious would have to retreat into the Coruscant underworld while the entire galaxy was now hunting him down. Within hours of this, Grievous was already destroyed, and the Separatist leaders would be discovered on Mustafar and promptly arrested. The signal from Palpatine trying to execute Order 66 was traced into the underground tunnels. So many clones and Jedi were now down here searching for him. In a matter of hours, the droid army was shut down. Sidious was without allies, aside from those in the Senate, but they couldn't exactly help him any longer. All he had was time to plan his escape. Around 24 hours later, Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala were boarding Padme's ship to take off to Naboo, where Padme was going to have the twin children. Anakin had explained everything to the Jedi, and although they weren't happy with the secrecy, the Jedi were very much more focused on finding Sidious. In space, every single ship that was leaving Coruscant was being scanned for additional life forms to try and find the Sith Lord. For the last day, he has seemingly disappeared. Of course, Padme and Anakin were exempt from this scan, and they would avoid the heavy traffic flow by taking a path exclusive to those traveling for the war effort. Anakin just took a seat in the pilot's chair, plugging in the coordinates for hyperspace. But before he could make the jump, he felt something in the Force, a tiny feeling of darkness, enough to make him call out for Padme, and he received no reply. Anakin grabbed his lightsaber, slowly moving to the back of the ship, only to find him. Darth Sidious was holding Padme in front of him, with a dark, terrifying smile etched on his face. Anakin was about to ask Sidious what he wants. He was about to try and negotiate. He was about to do anything it takes. But Sidious was past that. He told Anakin that his only purpose in life will be to lose everything he loves. And before Anakin could even react, Sidious's red lightsaber ignited through Padme's back. She died immediately in shock, staring at Anakin for help. Anakin was frozen. Padme fell to the floor in slow motion. Lightning burst out of Sidious's fingertips, spraying into Anakin, and he slammed into the wall. Grief, mixing with pain and shock, would make Anakin go unconscious. Sidious was pleased with this. Padme's death was a necessary part of his plans. He threw Anakin into an escape pod, ejecting it into space. Now, he would activate the secret reserve fleet of the Separatists. He would go to the planet of Lothal. He would find the Jedi Temple there. He would find a way to get to the world between worlds. He would activate it. He would take over the galaxy, no matter what it takes. The next 3 months would be agonizing for Anakin Skywalker. Everything he ever wanted seemed to be so close, and every day he wondered why Palpatine kept him alive. His life with Padme and the children was finally about to be here, and it was all ripped away from him by Sidious. For these months, Anakin was dedicating himself to finding the Sith Lord. It was all he could do. To avoid remembering the exact moment, everything was taken from him, but every single lead amounted to nothing. He felt lost, and despite Obi-Wan, Rex, and Ahsoka doing everything they could to try and be there for Anakin, there was nothing they could do. It was all a waiting game for Sidious to reveal himself. Sidious, of course, had a plan. On Lothal, he secretly had parts of the large Separatist reserve fleet that was kept in hiding, working for him. So many battle droids, ships, and everything else for one final fleet was here. Palpatine had construction droids, taking apart pieces of the Jedi Temple, loading it onto his flagship. These pieces that were the door to the world between worlds, a place where Sidious knew he could rewrite history. But the world between worlds, despite holding so much power, could only be unlocked by a Jedi. That was where Anakin would soon come in. Sure, Sidious could have just brought Anakin here with Padme and threatened to kill her if Anakin didn't go in, but he knew Padme would likely have been able to talk Anakin out of it. He had to kill her, and now he would present Anakin with a way to get her back. And finally, after 3 months of work, Sidious was ready. He would call upon the entire Hidden Reserve fleet and prepare an attack on the innocent people of Lothal, all with plans to bring Anakin to him. And that same day, inside of the Jedi Temple, the Council would receive a special message that Anakin himself needed to see. It was Darth Sidious, and he told the Council that today, the planet of Lothal will burn. Thousands of civilians will die, unless Anakin surrenders to him. Anakin was more than ready. He told the Council he will go alone. Obi-Wan protested. So did the rest of the Council, but they told Anakin he was right. He must go alone to Palpatine, but the rest of the available Jedi Masters will go to Lothal and protect the people there. Anakin nodded, promising to the Council to finish this. Whatever Sidious has planned, it will not work. And just an hour later, the Separatist reserve fleet, filled with thousands of warships left hidden for this final strike, descended upon Lothal. But not without resistance. Venator cruisers and Republic gunships also scrambled into battle. Ahsoka Tano was leading the Jedi in the space attack, alongside the 501st in their starfighters with Rex commanding. The battle in space began, reminiscent of the battle above Coruscant, and below, the ground was becoming chaotic. Hundreds of Jedi Knights and Masters would assemble across the plains and streets of Lothal's capital. Waves of battle droids advanced from the horizon, stretching as far as anyone could see. The ground shook with the march of tanks and battle droids. Depa Billaba cut down a dozen super battle droids before an explosion consumed her. Jaro Tapal led a Jedi squad through the streets, defending civilians as they fled to their fortified center of the city, and Tapal would fall in this defense. Luminara Unduli and Quinlan Vos moved together until a bombardment collapsed the entire block, taking them both as they saved the civilians in the way. The Force itself was crying out as Jedi after Jedi fell in this huge onslaught. Civilians were running through the streets under Jedi escorts, Aayla Secura vaulting from transport to rooftop, slashing down battle droids, with Shakti leading a charge through the tall grass. Hundreds of Jedi were doing whatever they could to hold back the massive waves of droids from entering the city and destroying the people here, with Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Mace Windu at the forefront. Above the planet, Ahsoka's starfighter was trailing smoke as she dove between Separatist bombers to protect Rex's squadron, and now the 212th was descending from orbit, jetpacks igniting as they were joining the ground assault. They landed in the burning fields outside the city, charging forward, forming defensive lines around the remaining Jedi. The droid army continued to press in, forcing every clone and Jedi to fight with their final breaths. There were more droids here than on Geonosis, it seemed, and at the heart of the battle, a single Jedi starfighter would be escorted into the flagship of the Separatist fleet. Anakin Skywalker would be handcuffed by droids and brought into a secret room here. Anakin would soon come face to face with the man who brought him so much pain, the man who's taken everything from him and just would not go away. Darth Sidious was standing in the back of this large room in his ship, wearing the kind smile that Anakin used to love, the smile and feeling of comfort that Anakin rarely got as he was raised in the temple. But all of it was a lie. This was the most cruel man Anakin could ever imagine. And yet, there was a calm feeling in the Force surrounding the two of them. Palpatine told Anakin he's not here to fight him. That will help no one. Instead, he's here to present Anakin with an opportunity to have everything he's ever wanted. Can he not see that they need not be adversaries? Anakin just shook his head, saying that all he sees is that Palpatine continues to take whatever is not his. Anakin said that he can tell this is part of a Jedi temple. What is it doing here? Palpatine calmly told Anakin that he had this portion of a Jedi temple from Lothal moved onto this ship, stone by stone, all for him. Palpatine asked for forgiveness, as he said he thought Anakin would have thanked him for the effort. He's been looking inward upon himself. He's seen just how much pain he's caused. Anakin's face crinkled into an angry expression as he asked why he would ever thank him for taking down so many Jedi, for poisoning the galaxy with darkness and war, for Padme? Palpatine said he understands, but that is why he is here, to offer Anakin what could have been. He waved a hand, ushering Anakin towards the door of this reconstructed part of the temple. Palpatine's voice and his expression, despite everything Anakin saw and knew about him, it was still mesmerizing. Despite all of his power, one of Palpatine's greatest powers was the ability to fake human emotions at an expert level. Naturally, Anakin's curiosity would get the better of him. Slowly, he approached the doorway to this temple opening, and he was instantly filled with a mixture of overwhelming sadness and unexpected joy. He heard Padme's voice. She was calling to the twin children, telling them dinner is ready. Anakin heard two small voices laughing, running running over to their mother. Padme then called out for Anakin, saying that it's time to eat. Anakin heard Padme call out for him again and again. Little Luke and Leia were asking where he was. Padme just kept calling out, saying that they need him. Palpatine just calmly said, "They're waiting for him. He must go to them. He must open the door. After all, this is what he wants, is it not? This is the life he's always deserved." Anakin mumbled, stuttering over his words, saying that it can't be, and Palpatine almost broke, his brow furrowing into near frustration as he told Anakin it can be, but he must choose it for himself. Anakin looked back to the door, and again Padme called out to him. He could hear her beautiful voice. He could see her lovely dress swaying in the warm Naboo winds. The sound of Luke and Leia laughing, calling for him. It was agonizingly wonderful. He could smell the lake mixing with Padme's perfume. He closed his eyes, stepping towards the door. Palpatine watched him, knowing that in just a few more steps, everything he wants will finally be unlocked. Palpatine needed a Jedi to open up this portal to the world between worlds. He had the power to bring it aboard his ship, the power to show Anakin what he wants. But despite everything, he still needs a Jedi. Finally, with Anakin's need to be with his family, Sidious will have access to the entire galaxy. He will rule from beyond the stars. No one will stop him. Meanwhile, outside of the ship, Ahsoka and Rex were leading the final destruction of the battle droid fleet, a fleet that Sidious had no real care for. All that mattered was what was going on inside of this ship. And on the planet, hundreds of Jedi were falling to the overwhelming droid forces, marching to the main city. Obi-Wan and Windu were still leading the resistance. Obi-Wan nearly stumbled over the fallen bodies of Stas Ali and Agen Kolar, but he kept fighting, knowing they only had to hold on for a bit longer. He knew Anakin would get the job done. But in the ship, Anakin continued stepping to the doorway, with Palpatine following close behind. Palpatine told him that the gateway will not stay open for long. He must go now. Finally, Anakin could actually see them. Padme wearing her blue-green dress. She lifted up Leia, spinning her in her arms, as Luke was pretending to swing a lightsaber. The two of them looked to be around 5 years old, and Leia once again asked where their dad is. She misses him so much. Anakin was hesitating, and Palpatine said that so few people have a choice to live the life they truly want. Why would he deny himself? Palpatine used the Force, removing Anakin's cuffs, and he showed Anakin the activation panel. Padme, Luke, and Leia would all turn to the doorway, coming face to face with him. Anakin reached out a hand, and he closed his eyes again. In the Force, he could feel Ahsoka and Rex desperately trying to fight against the fleet. He could feel Obi-Wan's trust and belief in him, and even through the doorway, he could feel Padme willing him to do the right thing, despite everything in Anakin's mind telling him to go to her. Finally, he would learn to let go. Sidious felt it. He yelled out in anger as a tear fell from Anakin's eye, and Anakin used a Force pulse, destroying the stone temple around him. As the rocks began to collapse, Sidious reached out, trying desperately to hold them together. It was his last hope, but Anakin ignited his lightsaber, turning around with speed faster than even Sidious himself could use, and he stabbed his blade right through Sidious's heart. The Dark Lord gasped. His life would leave him as the rebuilt temple collapsed, with his hopes of ruling the galaxy. Anakin was left alone, breathing heavily. He knew he made the right choice. Echoes of Padme still lingered, but it was her voice telling Anakin she will always love him. And all that was left now was for Anakin to get to the control center, shut down the droids. Down on Lothal, the citizens were all in the central buildings. They could hear the blaster fire explosions, metal footsteps quickly approaching. Every second, more Jedi fell to the onslaught. Kierimundi, Sazitin, Serjunda were among the hundreds to fall. Obi-Wan and Windu stood side by side as Obi-Wan was hit in the side by a bolt. He held up his blade, and now his wrist was hit. His lightsaber dropped, and Kenobi prepared for the end. But then, all of the droids stopped firing. In unison, they were shut down together. In space, as Ahsoka and Rex flew with the clones, they yelped in excitement as they received word of victory. Together, they fired through the heart of a Separatist cruiser, emerging from the explosion to see Anakin's starship flying out of Sidious's flagship as explosions were emerging from all around it. Anakin shut down the battle droids. He blew up the flagship. He won. Ahsoka called over to him, saying it's about time, and Anakin was so glad to hear her voice. He told everyone it's over. Lothal is safe. The galaxy would rejoice in the death of the Phantom Menace that everyone knew would emerge again someday. Palpatine was gone, and although hundreds of Jedi fell on the same day, the galaxy once more saw the Jedi as true protectors. The council would be filled with younger voices as Yoda stepped down, and many council members were buried among those who fell on Lothal. Anakin finally learned to let go, and with the help of his friends, he was able to move on while still rejoicing over the life of Padme and his twin children, a life he would never get to have. Instead, Anakin would live out his days on the Jedi Council, helping to remake the Jedi into what they were always meant to be. And soon, a young boy from Lothal would approach the temple, becoming a Jedi. His name was Ezra Bridger, and he would become the newest Padawan to Anakin Skywalker, and they would be protectors of all the people in this galaxy. And folks, that is our video for today. Whew. One I enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed this one as well. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. I don't know what I'm doing with that voice. Anyways, this was whatever, this was fun. I enjoyed it a lot. It's always, I've said this before a few times, but it's fun to do a story where Palpatine loses in the Revenge of the Sith movie, and it expands from there. It doesn't just end. I wanted to give him a new plan, and I also wanted to give him a thing that mirrors Ezra Bridger in Star Wars Rebels. I think they're very similar characters, so I like doing that. Go watch Star Wars Rebels if you never have. Great show. First season's a bit of a drag, but after that, it's probably the best thing Disney's done. At least close to it. Anyways, enough rambling. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. Let me know what you want to see next. And as always, I will see you in the next video.